welcome to a special edition of the Andy Martin Show, Friday, June 11th. You're saying, yeah, I thought you were supposed to be on vacation. Well, I still am. The shirt is there, and I wore it in honor of Kimmy's pictures in Guam on her Facebook. I wanted to, we're pretending we're on the island of Guam here today. And but this is a special presentation here today. Sincerely, it's on the Andy Martin Show. I'm thrilled that Philip is with us. We are in 3 countries right now, live. I'm in Canada, Kimmy's in the United States, and Philip's in the UK. Oh. So without further delay, I've got a week worth of shows coming up. I'm going to sit back and just enjoy my amazing compadre in the United States and in Texas do this because she's a natural and she's going to take, and I'm a man of my word. I said Kimmy was going to host the Andy Martin Show. So here we go.
Well, thank you very much, my Canadian compadre. Thank you very much. And I am delighted today to welcome our UK guest, Philip Malowney. Philip, welcome. Welcome to Canada and welcome to Texas.
Thank you for having me. You're in Canada. You're all over North America, Philip.
That's right. You guys are the only couple that have managed to actually spread me thin. So I appreciate that.
Anything we can do to help, anything we can do. So, yesterday was I just want to start real quick because yesterday was a very interesting, super busy day, had a lot going on. And last night at about 8:30, a young lady that I met 2 years ago, she's only 19 years old. And I met her and her father at a symposium in Houston, Texas. It was a parental alienation symposium. And he was the only person that brought his child. I couldn't understand why this gentleman brought his child along with him to such an intense symposium. And afterwards, I made my way over and introduced myself. And I'm one of those people who don't like a lot of people's children, other children, but this young lady, she drew me in, her heartstrings, like there are some people where you can just feel their soul. And this man did such an amazing job with his daughter. You could tell that the struggle that they were having within themselves was real. You could feel their pain just by talking to them. And I had an immediate connection with this little 19-year-old girl. She's only a couple of years older than my daughter that I have here. And her story is terrible. Her 2 older siblings have been alienated from her father. And they were all really, really, really close. And last night, she posted a TikTok video of her father receiving the graduation pictures of her 2 older siblings and herself. She gave it to her father as a gift. And I tell you what, these bags under my eyes, I cried and cried and cried. And Morgan White, if you're listening, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. I want to tell you how proud I am of the father that you have and your love for him. And it is because you, as a 19-year-old girl, are speaking out about what's happened to you and your siblings that we are here today to talk about these, because we don't want what happened to you to happen to anybody ever again. And so your braveness as a 19-year-old girl, when I met you, is astronomical. And I'm honored to know you, my young friend. Keep fighting, sister. And what you're doing for your father, I feel it all the way over here in Texas. Thank you, little Morgan. So I just had to share that with you because I was in tears. I was going in today all excited, and then Morgan, but they were tears of being proud. She, the situation with her mother is complicated. So as just a random mom, I believe wholeheartedly it takes a village. And I'm proud to be a part of Little Morgan's village. So without further ado, we are going to circle back over to Mr. Malowney and our show for today. So let's start in. Philip, where were you born?
Oh, Look, lovely question. Let me just recircle back. I saw that TikTok that you're talking about, because I think you shared it on social media, and it was one of those TikToks. So I just sort of glanced out the corner of my eye. It was on silent or what have you. When I saw the father's reaction, I knew I just couldn't watch it, because it broke him like straight away. You know, he was over the moon, and I didn't need to be in that emotional state, especially coming into doing this. But thank you. Where was I born? I was born in Hillingdon Hospital.
Oh, I'm so glad you saw it. And it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting because you mentioned you put it on silent.
Yeah, it was just sort of on, and I was, clicking through or what have you.
Because you knew just by the visual, it would have been too heavy.
Yeah, and then when I saw the father just kind of put them down and, gather, and it set him off and what have you. Beautiful. I mean, how many in this spectrum of family courts, etc., we see so many breakthrough beautiful moments that come along, and it's really important that people like that do share those things, because it really generates hope for a lot of people.
Yes, it does. I'm so glad you got to see it. But go ahead, sir. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So where was I born? So I was born in Hillingdon Hospital in the UK, born to parents of Anglo-Indian heritage. So I'm very mixed. I've got Portuguese, Irish, and Indian blood flowing through me, which splinters down into my children as well, and splits even more.
So you were raised there in the UK?
Mm-hmm. Born and raised in the UK. So I'm the youngest of 5 brothers. I've got 4 older brothers, and they were all born in India. And my mother came over in circa 75, 76 by herself. And she was almost like a grappling hook, right? If you imagine firing a grappling hook over a wall in order to climb it. So Mum was the grappling hook that came over to the UK because of our heritage, etc. She got stuck in. She just started working, got a place, got an apartment, and really, really grafted. Beautiful woman, my mother was.
I love the hustle. I love the hustle. That hustle is something that I feel like has faded a little bit, but I appreciate that. I appreciate that in somebody who is able to do that. It takes what they call chutzpah. It's chutzpah.
It's chutzpah.
It's chutzpah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, she had a lot of chutzpah, let me tell you.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you're there in the UK, 5 brothers, mom and dad. And what would you consider yourself a middle class in the UK?
I'd say working class. Yeah, working class people.
My favorite. My favorite. My dad was in the military, so I get it.
Yeah. Well, both of my parents had multiple jobs when we were growing up. Multiple jobs. I mean, there wouldn't be a moment, they'd come almost like sort of ships in the night. I remember my mum at one point, I think I remember between my mum and dad, they both had 5 jobs each growing up.
But in my opinion, that is an incredible example. Nothing comes free, and everything that you want, you have to work for. So how long have they been married?
That's a good question. So my brother, so my mother passed away in 2013.
Sorry.
So she would have been married. I think they would have been coming up to about almost circa 50 years.
Wow. Wow. That's still okay. Just so you know, my mother also passed. She passed in 2017. But they would have come up on 40 years. So I appreciate that. So as far as your example, I think it's clear in my opinion, but how would you define the example that you had as for your parents growing up?
Well, so as a child looking on to this, to this gargantuan effort that my parents were showing me in, day to day, I was oblivious to it, right? I was a child, looking back now, I know exactly what it was. But as a child, I was completely oblivious to what that meant, what it was why it was for me and for, for my brothers and being sort of, first generation sort of immigrants, etc., into the country. I was completely unaware of what that actually meant, which is a little bit, it's kind of like, I'm sure they would have wanted that, but I didn't get it at the time. I didn't understand it.
Yes, but I think that is the way that it should have been set up. You shouldn't have understood their stress at the time. That was adult stress, and they did good in blocking you from all of the adult stress that you can look back as an adult and recognize as, oh my gosh, that could have been very stressful. 5 jobs between the two of them. As an adult, I look at that and I go, oh my gosh, that was a heavy load to carry. But they were doing what they wanted to do and needed to do for their family. And I think that shows a lot of unselfishness and a lot of sacrifice for the betterment of their family. So are you close now with your 5 brothers?
That's a good question. They're all still around. I'm closer with some than others, but we're adults now, right?
Yes.
We've got our own gripes. We're all holding on to crap and stuff like that. Especially when if you fast forward to to the fallout of a high conflict divorce, you're always going to get some splinters and some movement in there. But for the record, I love all of my brothers, but we're just not getting on at the moment, so it just is what it is.
Yes. And that's okay. That's okay. My point of asking that is to humanize, to bring into full circle, because what I have found in my journey and is that those familial relationships after or during or at the onset of these relationships tend to fall by the wayside for a plethora of different reasons. But we're also very conditioned to not want to talk about it because in some instances, people view those as shameful. And I'm trying to destigmatize the shame that goes along with losing some relationships along the way, because it happens for various reasons. So that's the reason for having apps, because this is a cumulative thing. This isn't just one segment of your life. This all goes and grows to where we are now. Okay, so fast forward, you graduate high school, you go to college.
No, didn't go to college. Started working.
Okay.
So here in the UK, there's not a huge stigma around sort of having to go to university in order to get ahead, which is what it is, right?
Yes.
But in the States, you're very, very limited. So you could kind of be in the UK, and if you show aptitude and if you're a grafter or what have you, there are many verticals for you to make it. So I went to college, did a business and finance course to like an A-level standard. So I guess that would be the equivalent of like a high school diploma to then go on to university or college or what have you.
Okay.
And started working in a pub part-time, and then moved into an estate agency because I wanted to wear a suit. So I started in real estate, and I didn't want to come home covered in beer all the time, and I needed to stop drinking during my lunchtime because it was all too convenient. Got a job in estate agents and just took off. Really, just it was fantastic. Opened my own business with my brother, and I mean the story has many.
Yes. Okay. So from there, lead me to your bride to be.
Gosh, yes. Okay. Right. So, I met Bianca when we had a mutual friend, a guy called Alan, right? And he used to run a pub in Southall. So Bianca came over from New Zealand on her OE. So that's their overseas experience, right? So a lot of the Antipodean, like South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, they come over to London. London's the hub for Europe, and they go traveling and they do all of their sort of, get all of that kind of stuff out of their system. Or what have you. Oh, well, yeah, I hope not. Okay, she might have, I don't know, but we fell in love, actually. A quick anecdote about Bianca is she I was standing at a bar waiting for my friend Alan because there was a couple of pubs close to each other, and there'd be a bit of camaraderie between the owners. And she came in from a shopping trip. She'd been to the market, and she had this thing, and it was a device that she'd bought from the market, and it was called an orgasmatron. Right, and it's this thing. It's like a twisted. It's like a
hey,
twisted
Philip,
handle.
this is a family show.
hold on there, Andy. Hold on there, Andy. I've got some family anecdotes about it. In fact, we might have made a family because of it. So you got this orgasmatron. I'm there with a bald head, okay, and she's like, "This is going to be perfect for your hair." And it's a massager. It's like one of these like massage things, right? And it was like, she used that. And then I didn't see her again, like for ages and ages and ages, because she went to go and work in China. And you may remember that China had a SARS outbreak, and she came back. Okay, so she was over there teaching English. She came back, and we were like, oh, hey, you're back and I'm back, or whatever. And I think there was a moment that she would probably recall in absolute horror to suggest that she was ever inebriated at a club near these bars, and we sort of agreed to meet up again the next day. And we, cut a long story short, I think she phoned her mum and said, "I've just met the man I'm going to marry." So that was pretty much a green light for me.
Okay, now what was that time frame? What was the time frame from the time you guys re-met and then decided this is it?
Whirlwind, like that, bang, we knew. We knew. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so you get married, and how long into wedded bliss is your first bundle of joy to come?
Right, okay. Oliver was born in 2005.
And Oliver is how old now?
He's 16 now. Yeah.
16. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the reflection of going back 16 years.
16.
Does it seem like it happened like that?
Yeah, I think time is doing a very funny thing to me at the moment. I'm on this little sort of almost like I'm almost on like a serving tray, just like a little dinner serving tray, and I have to stand on it, and I'm just shooting through time at the moment. That's how it feels. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I'm not sort of making plans. I'm not.
But it's just whipping by you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it feels.
Incredible. I can't like even going through the journey of meeting and getting married and growing up. It's wait a minute, and now he's 16. So so how old is his brother?
Ethan is coming up to 10.
10 and 16. All right. So now fast forward a little bit through your wedded bliss and your 2 children. And how long were you how long were you married before you ended up getting a divorce?
So we were nearly 9 years into being together.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now pick up there and tell me your journey from the time, and a little bit of our language might be different with respect to the filing and what happens in that process.
Sure.
Yeah. Start us off with the story right as soon as basically through no choice of your own, you invited the legal system into your family.
Yeah. Okay. So the 8th of August, 2013, I came home from working in Leeds, and I had expected my family not to be there. But I wasn't expecting them to be on the other side of the planet at that time. So I made a phone call the next day to arrange to meet up. And I got that international dialing tone that you hear, when you make a foreign phone call or what have you. And I got sort of told that my other half is in New Zealand. So it was numbing, really. I didn't know what to think. I was like, well, how do you deal with this? People would say, oh, if that happened to me, I would be like this, or I would be like that. And for me, I just wanted to understand it.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to, like, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to understand it. And I didn't feel like anything almost, you know, I didn't feel.
So when you say you didn't expect them to be there, did you mean it was normal for you to just arrive home before everybody else got there? Or
no, I was told not to worry if I didn't get hold of her, and that they would be camping at a friend's house. So, because it was the 8th of August, right? So we're in now the summertime, so the school's off. So it was going to be a case of like, you know, we're going to be doing something this weekend. So
you could have arrived home and they weren't there, and the whole setup was to make sure that you didn't react in a negative way when you arrived home and they weren't there, because they could have just been camping.
Yeah.
So on the relationship side of things, there was nothing that you were aware of that would have led you to believe that your spouse would just be gone.
No. Nothing that would warrant that. There were, you know, it would be sort of bizarre for me to say that there was nothing going on. We had our struggles. We were going through a really tough time at that point. Stuff that I don't think that I could do in this conversation. That, you know, that was happening at that time. But on my account, I'd started a new job. It meant that I had to travel to the north of England. It meant that I was away for multiple days. Really sympathetic employer who had been through the process of working away from his family and was really sympathetic to what that would have meant back home. So he made sure I was only up for like 3 or 4 days and then back home.
So in your work life, you were still making the necessary concessions to make sure that you were still being a responsible family man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I want to just draw a couple of similarities because of where you are in your story. So for me, number one, met and married within 3 months. For me, number two, had our first child within 9 months. With another similarity, after 18 years, I'm sitting at my office working. Normal. I get a text message that says I moved out of the house today. So I remember sitting at the desk and a random coworker walking up and making eye contact with that random coworker and not hearing anything that they were saying, but welling up with emotion, just falling apart. And the random coworker going, what did I say? What did I do? Because he felt like he had done something. And he was so worried he was going to be in trouble for whatever it was he had done to cause such a reaction, when in actuality had nothing to do with them. So I can identify with that sudden shock, sudden blind side, and the quick movement. Okay. So clearly the big difference is now, without any notice, your children are now in another country.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So walk us through from there.
Cool. Right. Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think from that point, it was, you know, it was, like I said, understanding, right? I just wanted to understand it. And at first, I have to trust what she said was, you know, true. And that's what she wanted to do. Originally, it was a case of, we're just going to stay here for the summer. Okay. And she's going to clear her head and it's going to be good for me. She's sorry that it happened like that. And we're going to, you know, we're going to be back in September in time for school. And that very quickly transferred that it wasn't going to happen like that. So I had to file with the Hague Convention so a very long story, very short. I waited till after Christmas before I filed with the Hague Convention. just to kind of keep the stress levels. Previous to that, I went out to New Zealand to just try and negotiate the, we need to go back. Anyway, I had to go through the Hague Convention. Hague Convention happened, and then I got the courts to ask them to come back to the UK.
Okay, so that's a really big deal because for our US followers right now, because you weren't divorced, because there was no separation agreement, she actually didn't kidnap your children. Those were her children, and there was no real agreement. If we were in the United States, she would have been able to do exactly what she had done with no real recourse because there was no court orders, there's no anything really to follow, and it really could have been just a vacation with her children.
To a certain degree, that kind of story will float for 28 days.
For a little while.
Yeah, so that's a 28-day thing. Look, I've just gone away. We're struggling. 28 days. I need a break, and then I come back. So you got to remember, this was August the 8th, and then I file in December, in January, and they come back in May.
Time. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so she came back in May, but you went to go see them, and you kind of checked on your children a little bit while they were gone. Physically, you were there.
Yeah, look, the employers were really sympathetic to what was going on, right? And, I had a new position as an operations manager. I was supposed to be steering this company to a new, different way of working. And, that became untenable. I just couldn't do that and have this going on. Right?
Yes. Let's peel back that onion just a tiny bit, because this is a really, really important piece of this that nobody likes to focus on. Here it is. On one side of it, you've just been given a really incredible promotion. You've just been given a really great opportunity to escalate your professional life to a whole different level.
Correct.
And had your family stayed intact, you would have been able to operate at an 8 to a 10. But as a result of your family staying intact or not intact, you're now operating at a much lower level. Talk to our audience a little bit about from the time your family left to the time your family came back in May, that emotional struggle that you were seeing on a personal side and what was happening to you on a professional side.
Yeah. So the Americans put it best when they go to war, and they use the term shock and awe in order to blitz a country or to blitz like an issue. So I felt like I was on the receiving end of a shock and awe onslaught. I had social services. I had the child maintenance services. I had solicitors' letters, divorce letters, mortgage payments, letters coming in from left, right, and center. And I was absolutely broken as a person. I literally, for, like I say, like I've been standing on this plate, right? I've been standing on this serving tray almost. I was so confined. I couldn't sort of spread myself and organize myself or do anything. Any money that I had through this job was depleting so quickly. So I kind of had to find a degree of forgiveness for myself. I became very reclusive for many months. I lived in a very small village, and a very small village means everybody knows each other. Everybody knows us as a family. I'm a governor at the school. I'm a volunteer at the youth center. I'm in with the local council development for the school playing fields, right? So I'm doing all of these things, and then all of a sudden, the shame, like you said.
Okay. So then, if Philip at that time had 100 friends, you had 100 friends, without speaking or saying a word, what percentage of your community immediately defaulted to, I wonder what he did?
100. Okay, it's easy to reply in percentage terms. I would say that 97% withdrew, disappeared.
Yes. So you became to less than 3% of the people that you knew the plague. You are now a broken family. He did something. He did something.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Okay.
Right? There's no smoke without fire. Okay. So these are all the things that I'm kind of like going, oh, no. You have to understand that you can't say I'm the victim, right? You just be like, I'm kind of dealing with this. But from another point of view, it feels like there's communication towards 97 other people that I'm this monster.
Yes, because you can feel it. They're not telling you, they're not opening a discussion with you. You can just feel the withdrawal of these people's love and their relationship towards you. How does that leave you? How did that leave you emotionally at that time?
Yeah, like I said, reclusive, really. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't even want to go outside my front door. I didn't want to go out there. And I didn't for months.
Okay. And then at that point, how much of your family was able to help you?
Family, that's the
right at that
one,
window.
isn't it?
Right at that window.
My brother Hessler was the most incredible support for me. The most incredible support for me. He knew it straight away. He got it. He got the situation straight away. And and so he would spend hours on the phone with me. And my brother Hester does not have a lot of time for a lot of people, but he was right there, standing right beside me, saying, no, this is unfair. This is not what should be happening. This is not what he deserves. Bang, bang, bang. That guy was just solid as a rock.
Okay. So now for our male audience, here's what we find in the United States, right at the time frame that we're discussing, right at this window. Now, all of a sudden, as an individual, your entire community has retreated from you because they've made assumptions about your situation from the outside looking in. They have no real idea what's going on. Now you are suddenly flooded with this shame. You're flooded with this shame that's ill-placed because it doesn't belong to you. You're blindsided. You're struggling at work. In the United States, what we're finding is when men are in these situations, a large portion of Anglo men kill themselves. Now, I don't know why that it is the other ethnicities, the Hispanic men that are not killing themselves, the black men are not killing themselves, but the white men, a very large percentage are killing themselves. In the group that we support online, right in this window of time that we're talking about, in this super vulnerable, emotionally wrecked, feeling like I'm not the man that I should have been. I'm not providing. What did I do? This internal struggle. There is a lot of suicide that happens. And I want to make positively sure that I stress how important it was to have that one man that stood next to you.
Yeah. You're right to do that.
You up and said, I believe you. I will fight with you. And I am here for you.
Yeah. How
big of a difference did that one brother make in your life at that moment?
It was, I'm not gonna, like, this was supposed to be fun, right? So I'm not gonna cry, but It was everything. It was everything. It was absolutely everything. He was, and is to this day, a hero. He's a hero. He saved a life. Definitely. You're absolutely right to say that, about having that one person. One of the things going through this is you learn and learn and learn and learn so many things. So many things start to make sense about the situation that you go through. And one of the things is positive attachments, So, he was my positive attachment. I've never had vices for anything, might smoke the odd cigarette, might have the odd beer, might have too many beers one day, and get drunk, heaven forbid. But I've never been somebody with like an addictive personality, but I'm definitely addicted to my brother Hessler.
I love it. I absolutely love that. So again, the similarities that I see, I had the same hovering. I'm just going to go clear my mind. The hovering. Are we getting back together? Are we not getting back together? I'm not really sure, but they leave just enough for you to believe that you are. Meanwhile, the shock and awe that you're going through, trying to reel from it. And then, yes, so I identify, and I also feel 100%, I identify 100% with she did something. She doesn't have her child anymore. How many moms don't have their sons?
Yeah.
What did she do? So I identify completely. So we are completely on the same page. And I do this show because the thing that I want is for people to know this is not a male. This is not a female. This is a parent issue. Okay, so now you've got one bit of support. You're struggling at your job, and now your children are getting ready to come back. Go from there.
Kimi, let me circle back and give you the same sort of kudos, please, for that point that you made. You could argue that historically, when you saw a woman in that situation, there was a problem. And when I say historically, 20 years ago, what have you. But now the catalyst for having that scenario is because it seems like there's like a playbook of how to trigger these kind of gains. So I absolutely agree with you when it is not a gendered issue. Still very heavily over towards male people who are affected by it, but those numbers of women are growing. You know, they're growing exponentially, which is such a worry.
Yes.
Which is such a worry.
Huge
Sorry.
That's
Give me your question.
Big point. Okay, so your children are now getting ready to return. You've got the Hague Convention involved, and go from the time in the legal system legally. Where are you when they come back?
Okay, so this is going to be very difficult for me to answer. Like with lots of detail, because the caveat to that is so the caveat to that is obviously I've now found myself back in litigation, so I don't want to say anything that is going to be, you know, but I'll just keep it completely factual, but there should be nothing in this part that obviously, you know, counteracts that that process. However, you know, I got this phone call from a chap at the family court. It's called ICACU, I think it is, which is the international courts. So I got this phone call, or I phoned him up, and I got this email saying, you know, you were successful. Your family are coming back on the 12th of May. And I was visiting a friend's house, because by this point I'd been able to kind of like just start, you know, I had other friends pulling in, you know. I've got an amazing set of friends, you know, who just sort of lifted me up, and I was elated. I you know, I cried. I was tearful. I thought, my family's coming back. You know, this was going to be something that it was massive. It was massive for me to, you know, to do that. But then when they came back, I was faced with more allegations. I was faced with, well, that was the first time I was faced with allegations, really.
As they pertain to your children?
Sorry?
As they pertain to your children?
Yeah, to everything, really. Everything. Okay. You know, you could throw the kitchen sink at it.
Gotcha.
You know, gotcha. I was
then
accused
immediately the abusive allegations start to roll in.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And they were non-discriminatory. They weren't just about your children. They were children and wife cumulatively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now you can't just file for a clean divorce, because now you've got to do what you've been doing for the last 6 months at that point. And that is go on the defensive. I didn't do this and I didn't do that and I didn't do the other. And every time you say to somebody, I don't even know where that came from, I didn't do that, you look crazy.
Yeah. So I think one of the things with that, and it's called a Scott schedule, like a fact finding. Okay. So they've got to find out what's going on here. Okay. And in that process, the family courts, they judge on the balance of probability. Okay. Which is how they want to do it, which is I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I would err towards it being not the best scenario. I think if there's a criminal allegation, you should face a criminal, trial and have criminal standards put to that. However, this isn't the criminal courts, it's the family courts, civil courts. Balance of probability is the measurement. So did you have an argument 6 years ago? Yeah, we did. Did you have did you watch something inappropriate on your laptop? Maybe. So on the balance of probability, these allegations and stuff like that, well, they stack up, but importantly, after those allegations were made, the judgment on that was that I should see my children, I should have a relationship with my children, and
Great.
They have to stay in this country.
Excellent. That's great news. That already, in my opinion, based on the scenario that you've set forth, was already a huge win. Okay, now, if you were in the United States, okay, let's say you were here in the U.S. and you were traveling that entire situation all happened here. Okay, so now the allegations have been alleged, but your judge comes in and says, you know what, I'm still going to allow him to see his children. If I was a betting person, now interference with your access to the children begins. I don't know, but if I was a betting person, that's where I see the next step happening. Am I correct?
It came a little bit later.
Okay.
It came a little bit later, but it did come. It was served up very, very cold for me. I had about 2 years of, I was awarded every other weekend.
Okay.
And every other Wednesday overnight.
Okay.
And every other Wednesday a dinner visit, right? So that's 24. So you're looking at about sort of 36 hours a week or a fortnight, however you want to slice it.
Yes.
Fantastic. Loved it.
Okay.
Always had time for the kids, always had energy.
Excellent.
And that went on for 2 years. And then I got served up with an interference around it. Partly my fault. I've got to take responsibility for my actions. I did something which was I don't ever advocate for anybody to physically chastise their child, but I should have known better in doing that, because that was weaponized in my view, and it went through to getting me a criminal record.
Okay. So give us age range at this window of time for your children.
12 and 6.
Okay. And was it the 12-year-old that was involved?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, Mr. Malowney, we have yet another commonality. So my then 13-year-old son was, just getting snarky, lippy. He's a good boy. He's a great boy. I don't ever have to spank him. But as a brown mom in church, we grab the fat of the back of a boy's arm.
Okay, yeah, I've had that.
It's a brown thing. If you are brown of any color, brown mom snatched the fat, and we were at church, and I said, "Not here," and he knew better. And normally, if I had snatched him, his little fat, he would have out of church. He would have been like, "I'm sorry, Mom." He was that good of a boy. If I ever had to even escalate to that point, he would just. And he was a lover, so he was the 5'6", and I'm 5'5", and he would have been all loving on me and apologetic. And instead, because we were transitioning, exactly same situation as yours, we were starting off on the visitation schedules, and he was pushing it. That's normal behavior for a male child that age. Nothing abnormal about it. And we got home, and he escalated. And another brown mom thing that I did, I threw my shoe. And I didn't hit him with the shoe. But normally we don't. When the shoe is thrown, it's a warning shot.
Yeah.
Brown children know if the shoe is coming away.
Hold on now. I've got to tell you, listen, I'm in litigation at the moment. That's a terrible, terrible thing to do. You should never, ever do that. And how dare you? Who do you think you are?
Yes, exactly. And so, and instead of piping down like you normally would, I get the wooden spoon and I spank him with the wooden spoon. He goes to his room. And that incident, my friend, on my behalf, caused investigation, removal, pending everything you could imagine. And in the same scenario as you, initially I was shocked and awe, and then I went through the stage where I really truly felt like my ethnicity and my culture were being completely diminished. But at the same time, I feel like now that I can look back, and I haven't seen my son for 433 days, but I stand without shame for what I did. I know what I did was the right thing for my son in raising a good, strong, solid man to go into the community. But I feel like once you enter the legal system, you no longer get to have the freedom to raise your child the way you feel fit to.
I just disagree with you a little bit. Okay. That.
Yes.
And it's this bit just here. When it comes to my actions as to what I did, they were wrong.
Okay.
They were the wrong things. So for me, that's my bad. I should never have done that.
Yes.
I should never have got myself in a position where I lost control or I acted out in that way without other. Because I believe there's other ways of doing it. You know, we might be culturally different in our heritage, but it's up to me to push that forward positively as well. Do you know what I mean? Because there's other aspects to our culture that don't mean you necessarily have to whack somebody with something in order to get your point across. So for me, I'm uber remorseful. I think that was the worst thing I ever did in my life. And if I could ever snatch back something, you know, I think that moment, because I saw my son cry. I saw him. You know, I saw him screaming, and he might have been acting up. There might have been this thing where my mum and dad are divorcing. Things are a bit. I'm going to challenge the boundary. I'm going to push the boundaries here, but I'm the adult, right? I'm the adult.
Yes.
You know, so that's my responsibility.
Yes, and precisely, and that's a huge. I think that anybody to see that level of remorse and responsibility, I think that that's almost like the best thing that we can give our child. We can give our child, you know, I've not been perfect in my life. I've not been a perfect parent. And that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I've not ever been a perfect
and we
parent.
have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves for that. You know, I can't, like I've done that now. Like, you know,
of course.
This isn't me sort of, I'm not going to be lashing myself all the way down the street.
What greater gift do we give somebody than remorse? Now, I will tell you, as far as I'm concerned, I was totally investigated by the investigating agencies, and the investigating agencies were like, what in the world? This is ridiculous. Open and close. This is absolute. This does not fall under any categories of abuse whatsoever. But in our system, because I loved my investigator. My investigator was a 6'4" black man from the South.
Okay.
and
so he's probably had a wooden spoon or two.
But once, you know, like I said, once he identified me and identified my son, identified the wooden spoon, he was like, I can't believe. He was angered at the idea his time frame was being taken away from a legitimate investigation where there could be some. So yes. So fast forward. Yes. In your situation, what is different is that once you were investigated, they found wrongdoing in your case. And
no, let me give you a similarity. Okay, so we call them social services. So social services came in, I was interviewed under caution by the police, the
Okay.
Metropolitan Police, parallel to this happening. Okay. So, as far as what was going on in my life at the moment, a bomb blew up, right? I'm like, Jesus, what's going on here? So when I spoke to the police, I was like, yeah, I'm coming down. Let's get this sorted out and we'll have a conversation, because that's how it was sort of given to me. But let me just segue into the social services. Social services investigated it, spoke to everybody, and the term that they use is no further action. So social services said no further action. We've advised Mr. Malowney that he shouldn't smack his child.
Yes.
Perfect. No problem at all.
Yes.
I agree. But there's two parallels. So there's your civil case, and then there's, well, hang on, there's been a crime committed here. So it was on the basis of there's been a crime committed here. I went for a police interview, and I made a complaint to the police because they didn't give me a solicitor when I made it quite clear that I didn't have a solicitor. At this point now, I'm on basic money, so I couldn't afford to go and just like phone up a solicitor. And I've never been in trouble before. I didn't know. Like, I've seen the TV programs, you have the right to remain silent, but I didn't even know that I was being arrested or like, I didn't know what it meant to be under caution, and they had to provide you with legal. Anyway, they managed to kind of like sort of duck and dive through the interview and progressed it, on the basis that it was in the public interest now to destroy lives. I was guilty of committing a battery on my child. So, that didn't help matters moving forwards. So yeah, but obviously.
Well, okay. So now we've got, 2 years goes by. We're actually getting along just fine. An incident happens. You make a mistake. Do you have a divorce at this time? Is the divorce finalized?
Yeah, we're divorced at this point. She's got the house. We're divorced. I'll tell you something there's nothing about this that's funny, but you would kind of like go, huh? Right. Yeah. So this happened on a Thursday. I was due to see them on a Wednesday. Remember I said every other Wednesday I had children, but this was coincided with his like end of school exams. So he had his final one on the Wednesday. Okay. So we communicated and said, look, oh, no, he had his final one on a Thursday. So we said, look, rather than break his week up, he's got an exam tomorrow. There's no point in him coming all the way to yours and then coming all the way back. Why don't you have him on Thursday? No problem. Makes complete sense. I want him rested. I want him focused for that exam. Okay. So this happens on a Thursday. We go in on the Thursday and he goes back home on the Friday. There's a conversation where he does the right thing. He tells the truth to his mother. Never lie. And I want my children to lie, right? If I smacked him, tell your mum I smacked you. Do you know what I mean? And I can't control whatever else happens after that. So I'm not going to get too animated, but you're taking me back there, Kimmy. But then we go camping on the Friday. I pick him up and we go camping for the weekend. And he wants to stay on the Sunday for even longer. And there's loads of photos and stuff like that. So I didn't bludgeon my son. Yeah, there's not even, he's got beautiful, beautiful olive skin. And we just had like this really nice time. And I think he sort of, in the back of his mind, he kind of like knew that, it's going to go down again. Stuff's going to go down. But it's not his fault. But my fault.
In his mind, you're starting to feel that he understands that the situation that happened between the two of you is going to take a turn that is outside of his control.
Yeah. My son, both of my boys, are fantastically clever. I mean, he is a genius. Okay, so this is a sharp kid. This is a kid that used to have adult conversations at kindergarten. So at nursery, before he even started school.
I love it.
The nursery teachers would come in and they'd say, Mr. Malowney, can I have a quick word? What do you do with Oliver at home? And I said, I don't know. We just talk to him normally, right? I talk to him. Like, I don't do goo goo gaga, and I don't do that. I say, hello, how are you? And I teach him how to pronounce it. And she said, well, I came in the other day and I had all these bags for, you know, for nursery, and he said, "Oh, you look tired. Have you had a how's your morning been?" And she was like, and I almost dropped to the floor. There was this little person, no more than 3 or 4 years old, having this, like, he cares. Like, he's showing this real compassion.
You are showing empathy, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
totally.
Like, I don't know whether to be angry about that story or what. Because this is something that all children should have, and we're not teaching them the basics. And the only thing you did was have a conversation with him and give him the gift of yourself when you were tired.
Yeah, the one thing that my boys got.
Can you help your mom with her bags? Hey, would you? Oh, I'm tired, son. Would you help me? And your son is, of course, he's going to share that wisdom. It's such a tragedy that all of the children in her classroom weren't being taught something as simple as human connection. You know, it's so terrible. Okay, so you would still describe the relationship between you and your children at this window of time intact.
Yeah.
Okay. So divorce is finalized. 2 years had gone well. A mistake happens, and now the battle ensues. All based on a criminal potential investigation.
Correct. Yes. Very good. Okay. So basically, so you've got this time frame. No. I mean, I think, you see, the thing is right. We all think we're unique, and stuff only happens ever to us. But the bottom line is this template folds out over so many people who are affected by these types of issues or these scenarios. And I found that so this was September, so we had October, November, December. There was 2 weeks while there was a social services investigation going on where I was sort of told, look, don't go over there, Mr. Malowney. Anyway, after the no further action, back into normal contact. But normal contact was the court-ordered contact, but I would have more than the court-ordered contact. We'd always share the holidays. I'd always be going camping and stuff like that. So I'd have extra time, and it was always agreed I'd have extra time. So Christmas came, and I was with the boys for, like, you know, a good week over. I think might have picked them up on like Boxing Day, but we had New Year's together because we went ice skating in London on like January the 1st during the day, and then they stayed up. I don't know if I should say that. They stayed up, and we had orange juice.
Fun dad.
Yeah, on New Year's Day. So.
Okay. So
and then it hit the fan. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this investigation was coming to its like, it was getting to this, like, we've got like 3 months or 6 months before we can, like, you know, do anything about it or what have you. And then I went to pick up my kids, and then that's when there was an interference in the contact.
Okay. Which is now her first interference technically since the onset. Okay. Now, time frame, how many years ago was that first interference from today?
That was on the 11th of January 2018.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
10th of January.
All right. So describe.
Yeah, something like around that.
Okay. First interference happens 2018. What is the relationship moving forward with your children from that point?
I haven't seen them since.
Okay, so couple of other similarities. You know, I'm doing the injection of the similarities, and I just want to let you know, are you okay to go for another 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, good.
Well, this is therapy, right? Okay, this is therapy. It's going to be used against me in court. It's going to be shown up. I'm going to have loads of mud slung at me and all the rest of it. But you know what? Do you know what, though, Kimmy?
What?
It's true. I'm telling the truth. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if because, like, one of the pieces of advice that I give to everybody, right, from being in sales, is never act out of fear, or never don't act out of fear. Does that make sense? Never be controlled by fear, right? So if you're scared to do something, the best thing to do is do it. Okay. And I tell so many people that, like, if you've got a bad for your order's not going to be shipped today, it's going to be 2 more weeks or what have you, make that phone call.
Yes.
Straight away, because you know what, then other people can do things that they might need to do rather than them sort of like phoning you going, where's my shipment? I've got 8 people here, right? So bad news, just get rid of it, get it out there. So acting out of fear is something that I tell everybody not to do. And coming on and doing this, I am petrified, you know, but that's it. It's just the truth about what happened. You know, I've screwed up. I wouldn't say that I'm a screw up, but I have screwed up, you know, and I don't think that anybody deserves what we're going through. I don't think anybody should ever be taken away from their children or their children taken away from them, because they might think they're punishing me, but they're not punishing me. I'm an adult. I can go out and I can do whatever I want to do or what have you, you know, but those children need me like I needed my parents.
Absolutely, 100%. And just to circle back on a couple of those reflections. So at the time of my first false allegation, it was March 2019, and it was dismissed. But I went on the visitation just like you did. So with my son, I was doing what we called a standard possession order, which is the first, third, and fifth weekends of the month. And for me, it was terrible. For me, it was awful, because from that point, my son had everybody coming to him telling him how awful his mom was. So from that point, mom was a terrible human being in every way, shape, and form. So it wasn't only about people extrapolating that incident into a more horrific. It wasn't exclusively. It was everything about her is terrible. So for a year, I had very terrible visits with my son and interference and just awful. But then he was enticed out of my home, and from that moment was another protective order. That's the order where I haven't seen him for 433 days. Right. Well, at the same time, I have an older daughter who's trying to have access to her father, but her father doesn't want anything to do with her. So she went over when he wants nothing to do with a child that he cannot manipulate into not asking him questions. Asking questions is not allowed, and you will conform or you will be rejected. And she's having a very difficult time with that, as you can imagine. And where I failed, where I made a mistake, was my daughter went over for dinner. She left the car there. Her headlights were out. It was late at night. I didn't want her to drive back from his home all the way to our home. So I pulled up in the evening, pulled my car up there, switched the cars around. But it was dark, and I noticed somebody in their driveway. Over an 18-month period of time, he had been with another woman. I'd never had any interactions with her, so there was no anger or anything like that. And I said to her, "Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. It's me, and I'm exchanging the cars for my daughter. I'm wearing high heels, a silk blouse, long earrings. I've been at work all day." And her words to me was, "Get the F off my property."
Oh.
Yeah. And I said, "This is our first time having a conversation. I want to make sure that you understand how desperate my daughter is for her father." And she says, "That's none of my effing business." And I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I fell for her button pushing.
Okay. So Panamanian Kimi came out.
Very much so. But Panamanian Kimi didn't come out until I said, "Do you have any idea that that is my son in that house? That's my son." And she looks at me and she goes, "Not anymore, it's not." So I failed. I fell into the web they designed for me, and was shortly thereafter arrested. Had never been arrested in my life, and now I have a pending criminal charge for fighting or whatever.
Like assault.
Assault. There we go. Assault. And so I have no criminal record outside of that. However, as you can imagine, now the picture is being painted. And I always have to give credit to my good friend George from 2503 that you interviewed.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Andy. When Andy signed, invited me to come be a part of his show. Andy, within 1 week, Andy received a anonymous email that said your new co-host has been arrested, and the instinct was to be ashamed. But Andy got angry and he was like, "How dare they?" And George goes, "Oh, Kimmy, do they want to talk about arrests? Let's just do a show." And I'm like, you're right. Let's do a show.
Yeah.
Let's just, be free of that shame. People make mistakes. And the greatest thing that my son could ever do, or your son, is to watch this and see our true remorse for having engaged in a mistake. You know what? I'm human, and I want my son to know I didn't exercise good decision making when I engaged that evening. I shouldn't have engaged. But the reality is that is also an additional part of the playbook. And there's only a little bit of time that goes in before the situation is completely manipulated into their benefit. So now you have not seen your children since 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm in 2017.
2017. Okay.
2017? No, 2018. Sorry.
That's okay. I remembered. I remembered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew that. So I had like this period where it was like 3 years, can't communicate, can't do anything or what have you. And it was 1,580 days from the point to the 10th of May this year. So just adding on from the 10th of May this year to that 1,580 days would be how long it's been. I mean, I didn't even have my children around for my 40th birthday. I'm 44, right? So I haven't celebrated, I haven't mourned the death of my mother in 2013 because, as you know, they went in 2013 to New Zealand. So I've always been fighting for like years and years and years and years and years. And I think I've been learning as well, learning a lot about myself, learning a lot about what's important, what's not important, and how to, just how to. It's weird, right? Because you think people, no, that's going to break you, right? And which is why people commit suicide, right? Because they. And I get it why they do that. I don't agree with it, but I can understand that actually you're being taken to a place where actually nobody gives a hoot about you, or it might not, you just might not have that one Hessler in your life. And if you don't have a Hessler, what have you got? You just got like this, get out, Yeah. I get it. You wouldn't want to sit in there, but
okay, so you and I are very similar in that 2018 time frame. Okay, so clearly you did not roll over. Clearly you clearly thank God for the people that you have touched along the way, for the fact that you have not rolled over. Walk us through that moment where you said, "Okay, I'm fighting."
Oh, it's got me nowhere, but I mean,
you're wrong.
I've got, yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah. I know. But sort of like, superficially, it's got me nowhere. It's got me like, where's my kids, right? Yes. That's all I want. Yes. I just want my kids. Like if it was a case of like, forget the podcast, forget this interview, forget anything else, you can have your kids. I'll take my kids, right?
Of course.
I don't want to go. I don't want to have to go through this. I don't have to be a martyr for, for any sort of cause or what have you. I'd rather not know about parental alienation. I'd rather not know about narcissistic behaviors. I'd rather not know about all of these issues going on in the family court, right? But unfortunately, I do know about them, and they are very real.
And Mr. Malowney, now you have a responsibility. And that you have a responsibility to the person that is just now, where in each of those areas along the way that you've just described, you have a responsibility to reach into that burning building and grab them out.
Well, I never meant to do this interview in such detail, to be honest with you. So maybe this is my building moment. You know, who knows? Who knows? But where did I? So I guess what you were saying there is like, you know, where did I kind of like go? No, I'm not having that. That's unreasonable. Yeah, it was at that point, you know, where I was being told that what I did to my child was out of anger, or was it aggressive, or was like, you know, it was never ever that. It was never that. It was weirdly out of love and fear. I didn't want my son going down this avenue that I could see him going down if he continued with this type of behavior, or if he thought that was acceptable. And I just wasn't getting through to him in the way that I should have been getting through to him. So I smacked him. Right. So, it was at that moment when I was being told that, no, you did it like this. No, you did it like that. And you were thinking like this and you were thinking like that. And I just thought, do you know what? No, I don't think I can swallow this. And I don't think I'm going to swallow it. So they hit me with the maximum, right? Not swallowing it, right? So you hit me with the maximum. And I'm back. I'm still fighting for my children.
Okay. So where are you? Okay. Not too many details. No contact, no conversations, no email, no writing, no letters. Is that correct? Is that a correct assessment with respect to nothing?
As in sort of breaching the court order that was placed on me. So you have a
protective order that says you are not allowed to have any contact.
I did nothing. But that's not to say that there aren't people who have been affected by this court order.
Of course.
Who they make their own plays. They're growing up. They're turning into men, you know, turning into young men. And I think it's a really dangerous game to play, to try and control and to try and cage people and their emotions and their feelings, and telling them how they feel and telling them what's right and what's wrong. You know, you need to let them lions roar, you know, because they got a voice and they're going to find it. And you better be an ally for them when they find it. You don't want to be the problem when they find it. That's what I think. You know, you don't want to keep somebody in this like weird, like vortex of like, oh no, it's not like that, or what have you, because, well, the truth always comes out, doesn't it?
Yes. You know, I take so much from everything that you just said there. Number one, I feel like we had the same little lion sons. I relate to exactly what you were saying about your son and his empathetic connection to people. I took a whole lot of pride in that. My son was the one, you know, there's always going to be the child that's more similar to you. And although my daughter she looks like me, my son is the one who behaved like me, and he was not athletically inclined. My son is like me with athletics, gangly. We don't get it, but he had the ability to connect with strangers at a level people would come back and say, oh my God, I can't believe how I connected with your kid. Yeah. And what I fear is the 50-50 is our 50-50 chance. Either the lion that we put in them as a child is going to be able to come out again and roar. And when that lion roars, it's going to be a very big one when they see everything that has happened. Or the opposite, and I like to call it the diminishment of the light. Everybody has that light, and everybody says, "Don't ever let anybody dim your light." And what my daughter sees in my son right now is the extraordinary dimming of his light. She gets to see him for a couple of hours, about once a month, and she's like, "Mom, the light is dimming." There's all these caveats. And so I do look at the reality. When I get the physical sun back, is that internal sun going to be there? Yeah. And that is my prayer. God, protect his soul, protect his light, protect that in him. Let what we instilled in them when they had access to us be available for the world when they come out of this. But there is that chance. Claudia is another group member, and she has 2 sons, and her older son is completely removed from her. He's older, and that myth that when they turn 18, they'll come back around.
Yeah.
How does that statement make you feel? Tell me about that statement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we live in hope, right? But I think that sometimes, look, as human beings, we're capable of dealing with lots and lots of trauma. Okay. We can even become used to it. We can become numb to trauma. Okay. I mean, just look what like surgeons do, or if you're like if you're like somebody who goes and sweeps up crime scenes or something like that, right? You can get used to anything. Okay. And I think that we're capable of going down a path where we just suppress everything. I don't think it's the right path. I think you're probably capable of doing it. I've known people who have been in their 40s and reached out and regretted not doing something sooner, not feeling strong enough to do that. So when you say to me, like, oh, when they're 18, they'll come right or what have you, they're going to do whatever they are going to do, because I don't own them. They're their own people, right? They're beautiful. They've got my blood going through them or whatever. But ultimately, they're going to be responsible for their own actions, and they're going to be responsible for their own things. So I would just say that whatever choices are going to be made by my children, your children, or anybody else with children that they don't get to see, the choice is just going to have to be like respected, as to what they do, because I couldn't put myself in somebody else's shoes and say, well, I would have done that, because I've had that already, right? I've had people go, well, if my missus went, I would have done that, and I didn't do that. I sort of like, I did this. I became very insular. Some people go, I'd shout and I'd scream, I'll be on the first plane over there or whatever. And the truth is you don't know what you're going to do, but you have to own it.
Yes. Okay. So on that, it is the first time where I disagree with you, sir. I disagree with you. And I'm going to ask you, when you have an opportunity, circle back around and watch the interview that I did on this show of Petra Dieter.
I know Petra. I've spoken with her before.
Her story, I had the honor of being able to interview her. She is an adult alienated child. And how she describes her brainwashing and her the inability to have influence over your child is the hardest thing that I deal with. And talking to her and understanding how the primary influencer in her life led her to decisions that she made that she struggles with today as a result of the negative influence in her life is guilt and shame towards the targeted parent that she wishes every day she could correct. And to have your children or my children be an adult the age that Petra is today, struggling with reconciling with way they may have treated you or treated me as a result of undue influence is a pain that I wouldn't wish on anybody. And so to put those decisions directly on those influenced children who trusted that influence, who believed that that person was influencing them in a correct way, watching that. And then another show that I would like to remind our audiences there is Erasing Family. Spectacular documentary. There's a young lady on there that goes into describing, how she treated her father, and she struggles with it every day. Okay, so now you've gone through the divorce, you've gone through all of this, and now you're fighting back. Now you've got a successful podcast. Now you're bringing people like Derek and George on your show talking about this. Now you're on a Canadian broadcast talking to a girl from San Antonio, or living in San Antonio, and you're in the UK. What do you see? If you had a magic wand, and you could fix something about this awful system that we're in, what do you see as the biggest component in this nightmare that you would fix?
Well, I think if we dwell on my successful podcast for a while,
We should bask in that a moment.
I can only take from what I've learned.
Yes.
In that, and I think that there's a really good shout for a Swedish system that I did a podcast with Brian Hudson, and he raises the Swedish system, which is really good. And there's also a chap called James, is it Hathaway? I think so. And he's got like something called the parenting promise. So it's kind of like, we get ourselves to a point where we fall in love, and then we fall out of love. But it's only so when we fall in love, we kind of make an agreement and we put a ring on and we go, yeah, we're going to be happy forever. And then when we fall out of love, we kind of like, I'm going to destroy you, right? And in the Swedish model, you just have this agreement that if you get married, that if you get unmarried, you are not going to be doing certain things, that certain things are not going to be available to you. One, you're going to have 50-50 contact with the child. So before you get married, even if you don't have children now, when you get married and you sign this contract, okay, just in case, okay, you have children, know that if you get divorced, you're going to be both responsible for that child, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman. Okay, so you're going to be going your separate ways, but you're going to have to be responsible for that child. So if I was to change something, I would change the status quo around the family courts and what they deem, because I think there's a really nasty undertone within the family courts of just pitting people against each other to get more money, more hours, and I know there's people that go, no, the family courts, they're a very, very upstanding organization, which are only there to help people, right? So you're going to have, yes, of course, duh, but you've also got, just sitting below that, you've got lawyers, right? So what do lawyers want? Lawyers want billable hours.
That's exactly.
Okay? Oh, we're going to take, it's going to be 10 hours of reading before we can even write your statement. And you're like, oh.
100%.
10 hours
you
of
are
reading.
very, very correct. I'm going to go watch your interview with the Swedish.
Brian Hudson. Oh,
Brian
yeah, about that.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to be doing some more stuff soon.
I would love to do that. That is a really, really good point that you make with the 50-50 and the Swedish model. But we can take that model and we can bring it over here exactly like you said, and we can say, hey, this model is working. It's a system that has worked. It's proven. But the reality is, lobbyists here in the United States want to prohibit stuff like that from happening because where's the money and no conflict?
Of course they do. Yeah. I mean, yeah. and one of the parallels, I don't know how much time we've got, but one of the parallels
about 4 minutes.
That I'm starting to draw, because I didn't want to do a podcast and go like I'm the parental alienation guy,
Yeah.
Really, really sad on the parental alienation.
No.
Like I don't want to do it because I'm a fun person, right?
Yes.
I want to be doing other things. Let me like joking and laughing and drinking beer and stuff like that.
Yes.
But however, I've seen so many sort of parallel verticals almost of where you have issues. So when you look at parental alienation, there's a certain way that families and the sort of like these organizations organize themselves in order to raise funds through the government. When you look at racism, there's a certain way that people organize themselves and raise funds through the government. When you look at feminism and some of the darker feminist organizations, you see how people organize themselves and raise funds from the government. So when you look at the family courts, which is ultimately backed by the government, because in the UK we don't have any legal aid anymore, but you can get legal aid if you're in a situation where there's abuse or there's violent or there's coercive control, and there's ways of you to be able to fund the system. So what do people do? You go, oh no, we don't need any more legal aid. No, we'll stop that. They kind of like just tweak it, right? They just tweak how to get the money in.
That is all that it's about. And unfortunately, here in the United States, and this is a really big issue, is that there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser, because we have what we call the Title 4D. Title 4D means when you and your wife go into court, somebody is going to pay child support. So say, for example, you just gave the Swedish system where it's 50-50 and you're both going to be responsible. There's probably no maintenance that needs to be inputted in that because the prearranged agreement is you will both be responsible. So even if you didn't work before, now you find yourself in a different situation and you have to work depending on if there was somebody staying at home. Whereas in the States, if you go to court and the judge tells you, Philip, that you have to pay $500 a month in support, then for every $1 our local judge collects from you in that $500, they are rewarded from the federal government $12.60 for every $1 they collect from you that goes right directly into their slush fund. New furniture.
And so they should. These judges, they do a really important job. You know, to factor the $1 by 12.
Yes.
I don't know what your problem is, Kimmy. I don't know what your problem is here.
I like, okay, now I can't wait to talk to you again. I
think you're a bit high maintenance.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Well, Philip Malowney, I cannot tell you. On that note, if we can't laugh, you know, right? Where would we be? We are in an awful situation, bringing light to a terrible, terrible situation. But yet, I find strength to laugh and find other people to share stories with, and I am incredibly grateful that you were.
You're going to have to come on. You're going to have to come on my show.
I will stand by for an invite, my friend. I would be honored to. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for the time that you've given us today. And when I come to the UK, we're doing a beer.
Oh yeah.
Not a Budweiser either.
Yeah. No, we're gonna take care of you. You can come to the house, meet the missus, have a barbecue. Excellent. No problem at all.
Excellent. And if you ever feel like coming to see the Alamo, the #1 tourist destination in the United States.
Wow.
Only second to Las Vegas.
I'm there.
Mi casa es su casa. Okay.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Kimmy. It's been wonderful.
Yes,
Thanks for having me. My regards to Andy as well.
Absolutely. I will let him know. Thank you again. We will see you. We will see you again, I'm sure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, I'm still here.
Yeah, me too. Andy, where are you? Hold on. Let's see. Yeah. There we go.